Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Mehrob Fatemi. We have a packed show lined up for you guys today. You're seeing right now. We're going to talk about that later on in the show. But to start off the show, we're going to talk about the Los Angeles Lakers. They have Game 2 tonight against the Minnesota Timberwolves. How's LeBron James and Austin Reeves and Luka Doncic going to come back and really implicate their style of basketball into this game? How can they come back? How can they come back and win this game? Overall, what's next for this Lakers team in general? Can they take Game 2 and bring it back to Minnesota at a tied 1-1 series? From there, we're going to take a look at the New York Knicks and the Detroit Pistons. They had their game last night. The Pistons knocking off the Knicks to take Game 2. We're going to take a look at both sides of that game. We're also going to take a look at the Los Angeles Clippers. Kawhi Leonard having an unbelievable performance in general. We're going to take a look at what's next for how they can continue to improve upon their performance and what the Nuggets can really do, because they have done some good things. We're going to take a look at both sides of that game as well. And then finish off the show talking about Damian Lillard as the Bucks play the Indiana Pacers tonight. And I'll give a little bit of an update on what's next for Damian Lillard in terms of his health. But before I move any further, I'd like to ask that you please like and follow the show for more GSMC Sports Network content. Also, we get a number of questions from viewers that come in during the show. So to ensure that your question gets read on air, ask that you use the tips and donations link at gsmcpodcast.net. This puts your question at the top of the list so I see it. It also really helps out the show. Again, the link is gsmcpodcast.net for all your questions and comments. But getting right back into it here, we're going to take a look at the Los Angeles Lakers. The same Lakers team that got absolutely blitzed at home in Game 1. We all have seen the highlight reel that Anthony Edwards put on, that the whole team put on, going 15 of 26 from three-point range, shooting 50% by the end of the game overall from three-point range. It was an abysmal performance for the Los Angeles Lakers. And it was an abysmal performance from everybody but Luka. Luka Doncic going for 37 points is never abysmal, is never something you want to sneeze at, something that you want to gloss over. But in that game, it was, I'd really say, because of the performance of Jaden McDaniels, Naz Reid, Anthony Edwards, players that put on an absolute show, being able to facilitate the ball, playing team basketball, playing with chemistry, everybody across the team. But the biggest thing in this game that I want to point out was the shooting. The shooting that the Minnesota Timberwolves put on was nothing short of what you just throw up your shoulders. Like, what are you supposed to do? Because that's as a viewer, as a player, I can only imagine what it was like as a player. From a viewer's perspective, it was just, what are the Lakers supposed to do? They can't miss. But at the same time, we've been lamenting this over the last 2 weeks. The Los Angeles Lakers have a defensive problem, especially down the stretch, especially in the third quarter. They not only in the third quarter do they struggle to shoot the basketball, do they struggle to get their offense going, but overall as a team, they've just really struggled from the defensive end of the ball. On that side of the ball, they haven't defended very well. In this game, obviously, I won't lie, Jared Vanderbilt had a pretty good game in Game 1, but outside of Vanderbilt, you don't really see a lot of guys playing very well on the defensive end of the ball for the Lakers. Jackson Hayes, a very young, prospering center for this team. Ever since the Anthony Davis trade, he has not been the same. Or, I mean, he's been better, but he's not to the level that Anthony Davis was. So, and then from there, if you look at going back to the offensive side of things, a big issue for this team is their bench. Outside of LeBron, Luka, and Austin Reeves, who do you really have on this team? Rui Hachimura, Gabe Vincent, Dorian Finney-Smiths, Dalton Connects of the world, Jordan Goodwins. These guys, outside of Connect, Vincent, and Finney-Smith, three players that you only really bring in to shoot the three, pick and pop kind of guys. These guys aren't really. I don't really know you. I just from just a simple viewer's perspective, I'm not even looking at the film too much. These players just are not they. It's a very shallow depth for a bench, and that's the biggest issue for this Lakers team. And um, yeah, there's really no other way to slice it outside of that, because as much as we know, as well as we know LeBron and Luka to play come playoff time, as well as we know they can play, as well as they do play, um, they can't carry the show by themselves. Even when we saw Dallas last year, we saw PJ Washington around him, Kyrie Irving, Daniel Gafford, Derek Lively, all these big men and shooters with Kyrie Irving. With I'm trying to think of another one. Clay wasn't on the team at the time. They had another that PJ Washington was a shooter as well. Luka just had pieces around him. He had a team around him. It wasn't just a couple of superstars like the Lakers have right now. The Lakers just need more depth. They need a guy to step up off the bench, a reliable player that they can turn to score points. Back in the day, was Austin Reeves as a six man. This Lakers team doesn't really have a six man. That's my biggest concern with the Lakers. And if they want to try and come back in this series, if they want to win game 2, they not only have to defend better, not give up as many open threes, but they need to shoot the ball better. They need to play with team unity better. They need to play with team chemistry. They need to spread the basketball. They need to spread out the scoring. As much as you want Luka Doncic down the stretch to get a bucket, you need more than 20 points out of LeBron and Austin Reeves to have a chance of winning the series. To have a chance of winning games, you can't just expect Luka Doncic to go out there and do it night in, night out, scoring 40 a game and doing it all by himself on that end of the floor. It's just not going to work long term. Either Luka is going to fizzle out before the end of the playoffs, or he's going to get injured if you overwork him. So the Lakers have a lot of issues to work out, but I think this is more credit to the Minnesota Timberwolves than the Lakers at the same time. A Minnesota Timberwolves team that we've given a lot of criticism to, trading Karl Anthony Towns in the offseason, acquiring Julius Randle, acquiring Dante DiVincenzo, continuing to try and get rid of a big piece, a big star player in Minnesota, and continue to build the team around Anthony Edwards, give him more role players to work with, a deeper team, trying to emulate, kind of in a way, emulate the Celtics or the Dallas Mavericks from a shooter's perspective. The Timberwolves don't have the big men that the Mavs have. Do not get me wrong. But if you switch the way the Mavs have constructed their team around big men, and switch it to more two-way players, role players, shooters, that's what the Minnesota Timberwolves have built. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Mike Conley, Rudy Gobert doesn't count. Julius Randle, Naz Reid. They have Dante DiVincenzo. I just named 5 guys, just 5 guys off the top of my head that are just young, up and growing guys that have incredible potentials. Both two-way players can shoot the ball, can play good defense, can rebound well. That's what you really want, and that's what the Minnesota Timberwolves are building over there in Minnesota. And led by Anthony Edwards, who is continuing to perform year in, year out, continuing to get better in the playoffs. This year, in Game 1, he was downright spectacular in Game 1, only finishing with 22 points, but being a nucleus for this offense. He also did get hurt in that game. I want to mention that. He had a little. It looked like they called it a cramp. I would call it more of a calf strain. I'm not saying anything like that, but the way he landed a little awkwardly on his leg, and immediately reached for the calf. You don't really immediately fall into a Charlie horse or fall into a calf cramp out of nowhere. When you land on your leg, especially after jumping off a fall-away jumper, you don't land on your leg and just immediately grab it for no reason, especially your calf. So I would call it a calf strain. But outside of that 5-minute stretch that Anthony Edwards was not in the lineup, the Minnesota Timberwolves still continue to perform well. The Lakers did make a little bit of a comeback. I won't lie. I think they went on a 10-0 run while Anthony Edwards was gone, cutting the lead to 12. But as soon as Anthony Edwards came back, the lead went back up to 20. This is the spark that Anthony Edwards provides for this team. And it's going to be really interesting to see what JJ Redick does to combat it, because he's going to have his hands full. Before I move any further, also, I want to apologize for the leaf blower outside. I need to go out there in time to go away. Hopefully he leaves in about 10 minutes or so. But yeah, like I said, this game I had more of an issue with. I want to give more credit to the way the Minnesota Timberwolves played than the Los Angeles Lakers, because this is not the same. This is not new things for the Lakers that we've discussed. Shooting, lack of depth in their bench, and defense have been the 3 Achilles heels. In the third quarter have been the 4 Achilles heels for this Lakers team down the stretch here as the season is closed. Specifically, after LeBron got injured at the tail end of the season. But we know Luka Doncic is continuing to grow into this offense, continuing to grow as a player, grow into the culture here at LA. He really might not fully get there by the time the season ends, but we can still hope when we know he's still an NBA player. We saw 2 nights ago, he went off for almost 40 points. Vintage Luka Doncic from Dallas. But the thing is, we haven't seen this Lakers team with the same success as Dallas. So how will that affect him mentally as these playoffs continue on? Yeah, that's all I can really say. For my prediction, I would say this is going to be a really close game, a much closer game than Game 1. I don't think the Minnesota Timberwolves are going to shoot just as well as they did in Game 1, but whoever wins will win in about 5-10 point margin. The Lakers must play better defense if they're going to win this game. If they can lock down the Timberwolves offense and double Anthony Edwards and make somebody else beat you, they have a chance. I won't lie. They still have a chance. Part of me says the Minnesota Timberwolves are going to take this one, but I got to go with my earlier prediction before the playoffs. The Lakers are still going to win this series in 6 games. I got to pick the Lakers, because if they go down 2-0 at home, if they go down 2-0 for their first 2 games at home and have to go into Minnesota down 2-0, I don't know if I can pick the Lakers again. I don't know. But we'll see how this all transpires later tonight. This game tips off at, I believe, 10 o'clock tonight. So it's going to be all full steam ahead as we look forward to this game. Coming up next, I'm going to take a short break, but coming up next, we're going to take a look at the New York Knicks and Detroit Pistons game. Unbelievable game all around. Unbelievable finish with the Knicks almost finishing on a comeback. I believe it was a 12-0 comeback. They went on a little bit of a comeback in the third quarter and almost finished it in the fourth. We're going to get into everything about this game. And yeah, I'll be back. I'm going to take a short break, and when we come back, it's going to be New York Knicks basketball. Stay tuned.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh,
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Mehrob Fatemi. In our next segment here, we're going to take a look at the Pistons-New York Knicks game last night, Game 2 of this series, officially tied at 1-1 apiece as the Pistons took down the Knicks 100-94. All around great game. Madison Square Garden was absolutely rocking with fans, especially with a team that was down 13 points midway through the third quarter, for the Knicks to come back against the Pistons and almost win this game. The Madison Square Garden was absolutely electric last night, and we're going to take a look at both sides of that coin with how the Pistons handled it and how the New York Knicks fed off of that energy and continued to perform at a high level. But before I move any further, I'd like to remind you guys to please like and follow the show for more GSMC Sports Network content. Also, we get a number of questions that come in during the show, so to ensure that your question gets read on air, I ask that you use the tips and donations link at gsmcpodcast.net. This puts your question at the top of the list so that I see it, and it also really helps out the show. Again, the link is gsmcpodcast.net for all your questions and comments. Now, I've said it before, you guys really help us build our show. Whatever we do good, please let us know. Whatever we can work on, please let us know, because whatever you guys want to hear, we want to talk about. So you guys play a big role in this show, and everything is greatly appreciated across the board. But getting right back into it here, the Pistons took out the Knicks last night, and honestly, what was not only Cade Cunningham's first playoff win, but this was the first Pistons playoff win since 2008. A 15-game losing streak in the playoffs officially snapped for this Pistons team, and beyond well-deserved. Cade Cunningham having an absolute masterclass of a game, going off for 33 points and 12 rebounds. He was a dominant force, finishing with over 20 points before halftime. He was a dominant force in this game, and I've said it before, Cade Cunningham was already morphing into the role of the top offensive threat, leading this team into the playoffs, being the number one threat, being a reliable scorer, filling those shoes, which honestly, for a young player like Cade in his third season, are not the easiest shoes to fill, but he's done it, and he's done it well down the stretch here. On the other side, it was Jalen Brunson with 37 points, Mikal Bridges with 19 points. He was a point that I tried to hit home yesterday when I was previewing this series, that Mikal Bridges had to have a better performance in Game 2 than he did in Game 1 if they wanted to hold off the Pistons again. I believe in Game 1 he had about 8 points, only taking about, I believe he only took 10 shots. So I think he finished with 12 points. He only took 10 shots. This time around, taking 18 shots, finishing with 19 points. That's what you really expect from Mikal Bridges. More offensive production out of him, and that's what he delivered on. Jalen Brunson down the stretch here. The Pistons being up 90-78 to close the third quarter. Playing at a very high level. And it was the Pistons that clawed back into this game, and it can't be sliced any other way. If it wasn't for Jalen Brunson's performance down the stretch, being able to get to the free throw line, being able to spread the basketball to Mikal Bridges, to Josh Hart, to Karl Anthony Towns, this game would not have ended as close as it was, and it would not. A lot of the Knicks' comeback has to be attributed to the performance of Jalen Brunson down the stretch. So major props to him. But the player of this game, I would say it's two players. First off, Jalen Duren. Another point I tried to hit home. If the Pistons were going to win this game, he needed to perform better than he did in Game 1. Only finishing with about 6 points, 7 rebounds, a little bit of a below average performance from him. Normally we see him around 9 and 10, 10 and 11, 10 and 10, 10 points, 10 rebounds. That's what you really expect out of him. A double-double machine, using his height, using his physicality, his weight to his advantage, playing bully ball on the post. That's what you expect out of Jalen Duren, and that's how he's performed all season long. So I knew game 1 was a little bit of an anomaly. Game 2, he went above and beyond. He went above his average, going 12 and 13, and 12 those 12 points, especially down the stretch, with a timely dunk to put the Pistons up 2 points with under a minute to play. That's the Jalen Duren we remember, using his physicality, using his height, as an absolute cheat code, because it is. Who's going to stop Jalen Duren outside of maybe a Jokic, and a Vika Zubac, and Anthony Davis? It has to be one of the top premier centers in this league to take out a physical phenom like Jalen Duren. And Karl Anthony Towns was not up to that challenge, really. He was only finishing with 10.6 rebounds, shooting 5 of 11 from the field, 0 and 2 from three-point range, 0 offensive rebounds. That's more of what you that's the difference. That's a difference Jalen Duren can be in a game, especially for a player like Karl Anthony Towns, who is a physical, who can be very physical, who can take over games with his height, with his shooting specifically. If you let him get too much space, if he can get his shot going, that could be a difference maker in games. But Jalen Duren taking care of that assignment, and I mentioned it last show. If the Pistons were going to win this game, Jalen Duren needed to play at a better clip, and he did, absolutely. So major props to him. My last player I want to point out that I want to give a lot of credit to before I move forward to previewing Game 3 and what could be next for these two teams is Dennis Schroeder. Dennis Schroeder is a player that has bounced around the league in a midseason trade, traded to the Pistons from the Brooklyn Nets. A player that's, like I said, bounced around the league, has not gotten a lot of love, has been kind of in an NBA carousel, just floating around different teams year by year, or almost year by year, either 2 years or year by year. Finishing with 20 points in this game and hitting an absolute crucial three-pointer, a three-pointer that you expect a Cade Cunningham to shoot or a Malik Beasley. With time winding down on the shot clock, Dennis Schroeder taking an absolute monster three-pointer with under 30 seconds to play in a tie game situation, absolutely lacing it, and that was about the game. There was about 15 seconds. No. This was before the 15-second mark. I believe there was about 40 seconds left. There was under a minute to play regardless. It was either 40 or 30 seconds to play, and Schroeder just tried to get the ball out of his hands, get it to Cade, but he had the open shot. He had the highest percentage shot to take in a tie game situation, and he didn't hesitate. He didn't hesitate and absolutely laced it. So, major props to Dennis Schroeder as he's continued to perform down the stretch here for this Detroit Pistons team. And, unbelievable performance from him, and we look to see if he can continue to perform in Game 3. But moving forward in this series, switching gears over to Detroit, this is going to be interesting for the New York Knicks. We haven't seen them. I've said it before on this show as well. This New York Knicks team is not the same team over the last 2 years that has been the gritty, tough team down the stretch. Using their toughness, making games dirty, not dirty, but just making them messy games, making them scrappy, playing spoiler most of the time. That is the New York Knicks teams of 2021 to 2024. In 2025, this New York Knicks team is just built on more finesse, more shooting, more style, more of a flashy team. And where I'm going with this is I just don't think that flashy nature or its flashy style of a team is going to work this weekend or going to games 3 and 4 in Detroit. Number one, the Detroit Pistons ownership group has teamed up with Ticketmaster and has announced that they're not allowing anybody outside of the Detroit, Michigan area or Indiana area, that whole upper area, north central part of America, Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, Wisconsin. They're not letting anybody outside of those 4 states buy tickets to this game. They did use the excuse that this is like a once-in-a-lifetime moment for a lot of Pistons fans, and it's been such a long drought that they don't want it spoiled or watered out by New York Knicks fans. But at the same time, that gives an unbelievable advantage to the Pistons. A traveling fan base like the New York Knicks not being able to go to Detroit to root on their team, not being able to kind of try and even out the crowd, which this New York Knicks team does travel. Their fan base absolutely travels. It's going to be interesting to see how, first of all, how Detroit's able to feed off of that energy, because they just played 2 hostile games in Madison Square Garden in New York and was able to take one of them. That not only boosts their confidence, but now going into Detroit and in their home fan base, in front of their home crowd, it's going to be really interesting to see not only how the Pistons are able to feed off of it, but how the Knicks are able to respond to it and being able to keep up with the Pistons. I would not be shocked if the Pistons blow out the Knicks in Game 3, specifically. With how I don't want to say it, but I guess how rowdy this Pistons crowd is going to be. This Pistons fan base has been waiting since 2008 to win a playoff game. They've been waiting. They haven't seen a team this competitive. I haven't seen a Pistons team this competitive since I was born in 2003, when they won the championship in 2004 with Joe Dumars and Ben Wallace. These guys, they haven't seen legit Detroit Pistons basketball in the postseason since 2008. And with a young group like this, they're going to be out and frolicking in the streets. They're going to be out and about, making their presence known in this game. So yeah, this is major props to Detroit Pistons for knocking off the Knicks, a young team going into Game 2, not seeing their home floor yet, and stealing Game 2, evening this series, bringing the momentum to their side of the court, as they now have home court advantage. But it's going to be really interesting to see how the Knicks are able to respond in both Games 3 and Game 4. I really think the Pistons are going to take a 2-1 lead in Game 3. That's my prediction. I'm much more confident in that take than I was in the Lakers-Timberwolves take. But I think Game 4 is going to be the game circled for both of these teams. You've seen Detroit at home. You've seen New York at home. You've seen New York on the road. If they fall down 3-1 in this series is over. How are the New York Knicks going to respond if they lose Game 3? I believe they play on Thursday night. They don't play tomorrow. So, yeah, that's my take on it. But I'm going to take another short break. Coming up next, we're going to take a look at the Clippers game last night against the Denver Nuggets. That was another unbelievable game. We're going to take a look at both sides of that game coming up next.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Mehrob Fatemi. Getting into our next segment here, we're going to take a look at the Los Angeles Clippers held off the Denver Nuggets last night. Another spectacular finish in this series. 2 games, 2 absolute thrillers of games back to back, and I've previewed this as probably my either favorite or second favorite series. It's either them or the Golden State Warriors Rockets series, one of the two. But this Clippers team has been absolutely fun to watch down the stretch, going up against the Denver Nuggets, who were NBA champions 2 years ago, still with the best player in the league. We were in for an absolute treat in this series, and it has not underwhelmed at all by any means. The Clippers winning this game 105-102. A major big shout out to Kawhi Leonard in this game, finishing with 39 points. This was vintage Kawhi Leonard. This was Toronto Raptors Kawhi Leonard that showed up last night in Denver. 39 points, 15 of 19 from the field, only missing 4 shots the entire night. 4 shots. 15 of 19 from the field, 4 for 7 from three-point range. His mid-range game, down the stretch especially, was butter. Was like just pure. Every time he shot the ball from mid-range, fall-away jumper, you knew it was going in. It's his signature shot. We know it's his signature shot, his signature shot. But Kawhi Leonard is a player that's been underrated, has been underappreciated. Kind of similar, not kind of similar, but kind of it is his own fault. But Kawhi Leonard, especially down the stretch, has played as like a playoff performer, has played like a top 5 player in the league once again. But that mid-range shot, that signature shot made him look like Toronto Raptors. I can't compare it to anything else last night. It was something. It was just nostalgic is the only way to describe it. Ivica Zubac and Jokic having their battles in the post once again as top 5 centers in the league. Zubac's really growing into that role. But, of course, we know Jokic. Jokic finishing with a triple-double, 26 points, 12 rebounds, 10 assists, having another spectacular game. He did struggle from the free throw line down the stretch, which was a little bit of an alarming issue. We remember at the end of Game 1, once again, he also missed 2 free throws with under a minute to play, something we don't really see from star players in the NBA. It's gonna be really interesting to see if teams start kind of scheming against that, trying to use like a hack-a-shack kind of move on Jokic, intentionally fouling him down the stretch in close games. That's just a thought. But Jokic obviously having another great game. Jamal Murray finishing with 23 points. Michael Porter Jr. finishing with 15 points, 15 rebounds. His best all-around game that we've seen for a while out of him these playoffs. But overall, this game was about the Clippers. This was about Kawhi Leonard. James Harden finishing with 18 points, continuing to play well. Norman Powell growing his confidence down the stretch, hitting a timely 3 in the last few minutes of the game, keeping the Clippers in it. Overall, this was about the Clippers. Especially remember at the tail end of Game 1, a lot of key turnovers in that game, finishing with 20 turnovers for the Clippers, but 2 key turnovers from Kawhi Leonard at the end of regulation, and then in overtime with James Harden, Russell Westbrook having that iconic steal with under 10 seconds to play, icing the game. Overall, this was more about, I would say this is more about the Clippers than about the Nuggets. I'm trying to think of any other way to slice it, but I can't. Norman Powell deserves a lot of credit for his improvement in play. He still only shot 5 of 14 from the field, but still, being able to grow that confidence, being able to fill in that fourth role, that six-man role that he sometimes plays. Sometimes he plays the shooting guard position in the starting lineup, but sometimes they play him at the six-man, which is really good for that bench. Being able to keep that second unit fresh, being able to keep that second unit, give that second unit a chance to compete, give their starters a rest. That's the role that you want Norman Powell to be in, and he's continuing to grow into it, especially in the playoffs right now. But I lamented, I said this at the end of Game 1, what was this, yesterday? This series is going to come down to rebounding. It happened in Game 1. The Clippers were up 17 points. what happened in the last few minutes. It was about the rebounding, the offensive rebounding of the Denver Nuggets that kept him in that game. The height of Michael Porter Jr., the height of Jokic and Aaron Gordon, three players that can be game wreckers if they can get hot, especially Aaron Gordon, who's an absolute X factor for this Denver Nuggets team. Only finishing with 14 points in this one, not having his best game, but we've seen him go off for 25 to 30 points from time to time. And when he does that, this Denver Nuggets team is borderline unbeatable. But yeah, it's the offensive rebounding that can kill the Clippers if they're not careful. In game one, that's what killed them down the stretch, along with turnovers. In this one, it was a similar situation. I just said Michael Porter Jr. finished with 15 rebounds in this game. Something you don't really see, but something he can do at the same time. Something that you know he's able to do in his sleep when he wants to, using his athleticism, using his height, using his strength on the post. But overall, if the shooting of... We know that the Nuggets can't shoot like the Clippers, but they can rebound far better than the Clippers, giving them more opportunities to shoot the ball. That's all that really needs to be said for this matchup. But yeah, as the series switches over to the Clippers side of things back in LA, in game 3, Kawhi Leonard has to continue to perform at a high level. It's the only way for this Clippers team to have a chance. James Harden is unbelievable. We saw him finish with over 30 points in game 1, less than 20 points in this one. Kawhi Leonard needs to be the start of the show if the Clippers are to win this series. We know he likes it that way, but he needs to be the number one threat on this Clippers team to have a chance. I really think so. There's no other way. If Kawhi Leonard can play the way he did last night for the rest of this series, there is a world where the Clippers don't lose another game. The only way that the Clippers... There's 2 ways. Well, there's 3 ways that the Clippers lose games. I mentioned in game 1 the rebounding. I mentioned in game 2 the shooting of the Clippers. The third way that this series can go down is if James Harden and Kawhi Leonard go off into a shooting match against Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. That is something we haven't seen, and that is something we probably have in store, probably in the later rounds. We know this series is going to go deep, easily into the 5, 6, 7 games margin. That is something we expect to see in that 5 to 7 game margin. That's one of those 3 games is going to end off the way I just described, with Jokic and Jamal Murray going shot for shot with Kawhi Leonard and James Harden, and we're going to see who's the better team in that scenario. I really don't know because it's a shootout. Once again, I would lean toward the Clippers side of things, but we know Jamal Murray can get hot. We know Aaron Gordon can play unbelievable. We know Jokic can still shoot the ball. One thing I haven't mentioned so far in this segment is Mike Malone's firing probably has a little bit of a role. Has a little bit of a role in what's going on right now with the Nuggets offensively. They haven't played as well offensively as we really expect them to be playing. Some of that can be said about some of that can be pointed to Kawhi Leonard's defense, can be pointed to the Clippers' overall defense coached by Ty Lue. We know he's a defensive guru. We know that they still have Jeff Van Gundy there as a defensive analyst for this team. We know the defensive mind that Jeff Van Gundy has for this team. Overall, I think the firing of Mike Malone is going to be the Achilles heel for this Nuggets team and what ends up transpiring, how deep they go in the playoffs, whether they win this series or not, whether they have success in the playoffs or not. A lot of this, everything is still going to be pointed at Mike Malone. Either it's going to be pointed at Mike Malone in a good fashion, saying this was a good idea to fire him. The Nuggets end up winning the championship. They go on a deep playoff run. They make it to the Western Conference Finals, and they play at a high level, or they lose in the first round. They continue to struggle offensively like they have down the stretch here, and we point at Mike Malone and say that's why you don't fire a coach with under 2 weeks to play, with under a week to play, especially when you're the 3 seed in the East, in the Western Conference, and how tough the Western Conference is. You don't fire a NBA champion coach, a coach that brought you to the NBA championship 2 years ago, won you the NBA championship. You don't cut him off at the knees the way they did. That's the way I see it. That is something that's not being said nearly enough as it should. And yeah, overall, I just think that's going to be the Achilles heel of this team. And it's honestly, the Clippers are playing with nearly nothing. They're playing with house money pretty much. A Clippers team that you didn't expect to play this well. The Clippers team that's burst on the scene since Kawhi Leonard came back healthy at the beginning of March, going 19-3 to finish the regular season. Now 1-1 in the playoffs. Game 1 was close as well. Game 2, another thriller. This series is going to be back and forth as we go. I really do think so. And it's going to be really interesting to see how the Denver Nuggets are able to respond in LA. We know they play well in Denver. They always have. But how are they going to play on the road? Jokic is going to have 2 monster performances on the road if the Nuggets are going to have a chance in these games. That's what I think. And Jokic hasn't really played to that level since Mike Malone's been fired. But that's neither here nor there. We'll talk more about that I believe they play on Thursday. So we'll probably talk more about that on Wednesday, for tomorrow's show. But yeah, coming up next, we're going to take a look at the Milwaukee Bucks Indiana Pacers series. Obviously, the Pacers throwing an absolute curveball to the Bucks, wiping them off the floor last night in Game 1. It's going to be really interesting to see how the Bucks respond, how Damian Lillard. We're going to give an update on Damian Lillard's injury, see if he's going to be ready to go for Game 2 of this series later today. And yeah, when we come back, we're going to take a look at Milwaukee Bucks basketball. Stay tuned.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Mehrob Fatemi. Getting right back into it here. In our next segment, we're going to take a look at Game 2 of this series kicking off tonight between the Milwaukee Bucks and the Indiana Pacers, a series that's been circled in the Eastern Conference for a while now. Damian Lillard obviously being injured for the last 3 weeks or so with blood clots in his I think it was in his right calf. Giannis still performing as an MVP candidate in the regular season, still playing at a very high clip. The Milwaukee Bucks are still an unbelievable team. On the other side, we still have the Indiana Pacers led by Tyrese Halliburton. Still led by Halliburton, obviously, still having an incredibly deep team with Miles Turner, with Pascal Siakam. Just overall, overall great team in general. A deep team, a well-coached team by Rick Carlisle. It's just gonna be they played unbelievably in Game 1. They took Giannis's best shot in Game 1 and didn't even flinch at it. Finishing that game 117-98. It just wasn't close overall. But this is more about what's next for the Milwaukee Bucks than it is about the Pacers, I'd say. Starting on that side, Giannis finishing with 36 points, 12 rebounds in that first game. That's about it for good news about the Bucks. Outside of Giannis in that Game 1, the second leading scorer for this team was AJ Green and Gary Trent Jr. with 15 and 14 points. I just want to let that sit for a second. This is the Milwaukee Bucks team. This is the Milwaukee Bucks team that's been created around Giannis. They haven't created it like they did, like the Mavs. They haven't built the team around Giannis like the Mavs built it around Luka last year. They haven't built a team around Giannis like the Timberwolves did it around Anthony Edwards. They haven't built the team around Giannis like the Knicks built around Jalen Brunson. Overall, they haven't built the team in like the Warriors built around Steph Curry. Overall, this Bucks team is just incredibly shallow. I talked about the Lakers being shallow with 3 guys. Imagine 1 guy. That's what the Bucks have right now. And I know they have Damian Lillard injured and that there's still time for Damian Lillard to come back. I'll give a little bit of an update on that in a little bit, but Giannis can't do it by himself. He can't. And this is why over the last few weeks or over the last few months, over the last couple of years, but especially over the last few months, we've heard little rumblings that Giannis possibly might want out in the summer, especially if the Bucks do not contend for an NBA title this season. They don't even make last year. They didn't make it. Who'd they lose to last year? They lost to the Pacers last year. In that series, 2 years ago they lost to the Miami Heat. 3 years ago before that they lost to the Boston Celtics. I know in 4 years they won the NBA championship, but in the last 3 years they haven't made it to the Eastern Conference Finals, and they haven't made it to the second round since 2022 when they lost in 7 games to the Boston Celtics. This is more about Giannis and the Milwaukee Bucks than it is about the Pacers. And this is more about the Bucks getting Damian Lillard back than it is about anything else in this series. If Damian Lillard can come back and give Giannis some help, even then, they still lost by, 19 points? At the same time, is 19 points going to be enough of a difference that Damian Lillard can carry? Damian Lillard is upgraded right now to questionable in Game 2. He's expected to either come back tonight or in Game 3, one of the two. He is available to come back tonight. I don't think that news is going to come out till about noon because they're doing practices right now. They won't come out till the coaches do their press conference, their media press conferences, and even then, it might not come out until 6:00 tonight. That's the tendency of the NBA teams, especially in the playoffs, not letting the Indiana Pacers have any idea on the health of Damian Lillard. That's probably what they're planning for. That's probably what they're planning to do if I had to speculate on what to expect here over the next few hours before Game 1 or Game 2 kicks off. Game 2 starts at 7:00 tonight, so maybe not 6:00, maybe 5:00. But somewhere around there is when we're going to get the final injury report, get the final update on how Damian Lillard looks, what his health looks, his health update overall, if he's going to play in Game 2. It is not the biggest deal, I'd say, if they lost Game 2. I absolutely would not recommend it with how shallow this Bucks team is, with how they don't really have a lot of experience. They really don't have a lot of experience on the offensive end of the ball, the Milwaukee Bucks. So this game is a little bit of a must-win game for them. But at the same time, this series does switch back over to Milwaukee after Game 2. So they do have a chance overall. They will have a chance to win both if they can win both of those games. And Milwaukee has won the season series over the Pacers 3-1 in the regular season this year. It's still nothing to sneeze at. I still think the series goes 7 games, regardless if Damian Lillard comes back tonight or in Game 3. I think there is a world where the Pacers could go up 3-1 in this series, but I really do think that the Milwaukee Bucks have the firepower in Damian Lillard and Giannis to push the series to a Game 7. They could win 2 games in a row, win one in Milwaukee, win one in Indiana with their backs against the wall, and then come back in Game 7. And I think at the end of the day, I think the Pacers are just too deep. The Pacers are too deep of a team, and that's where I want to go next. The Pacers, how good they are this year, because they are probably one of the most underrated teams in the Eastern Conference. Not only in the Eastern Conference, in the NBA, period. With Tyrese Halliburton, Andrew Nembhard, a player that really blossomed in last year's playoffs, Aaron Nesmith, who's continued to blossom over the last 3 years or so since leaving Boston, Miles Turner, who's been there forever, Pascal Siakam, who's believe, no, he's not NBA Finals MVP, but is an NBA champion in Pascal Siakam, Rick Carlisle, TJ McConnell, Obi Top. They just have a 7-man roster who can go into double-digit scoring. Like, imagine if the Indiana Pacers roster, if the Lakers had the Indiana Pacers roster, had their bench. I think it would be borderline unanimous about how, maybe not unanimous, but the Lakers would be either number one or number two favorites to win the Western Conference if they had that team. That is just how deep the Pacers are this year. And I think that depth is going to be the difference maker, and not only in this series, but in future series to come. I don't want to say it yet just because we'll talk about second round of the playoffs when it kicks off in about a week or so. So just stay tuned for that. But the Indiana Pacers are one of my dark horses to win the Eastern Conference. If it's outside of the Detroit Pistons, well, I put them ahead of the Detroit Pistons as dark horses to win the Eastern Conference outside of those top 2 seeds in the East. I really think that's how good the Pacers are, especially with Tyrese Halliburton, how he's able to facilitate that offense, how he's able to spread the ball around to not only the interior, to the outside with Nembhard, with TJ McConnell, with Obi Toppin, Benedict Mathurin, who's growing as a shooter. I think he's either second or third year in the NBA. I believe it's his second year. This Pacers team is just incredibly young, incredibly deep, and they have a lot to prove this year, especially after making the Eastern Conference Finals with an incredibly young team last year. They remind me so much of the Detroit Pistons this year. That the Pacers of last year remind me of the Pistons of this year, with a chip on their shoulder, with playing with house money. A lot of people writing them off as a young team that you don't really have a lot of expectations for. That's the Detroit Pistons, and that's the Pacers of last year. And this Pacers team of this year has an even bigger chip on their shoulder, with an even greater confidence level than they did last year. That's just my take on it. I think the series goes 7 games, and I think the Pacers will win this series in 7 games, regardless of the health of Damian Lillard. But expect that news about Damian Lillard later today. I wish it would come out on this show. I wish I could report it right now, but we got to call. I don't have Shams Karania's number to call him and give him a quick buzz to see what that update is. He'll probably give that update later today. But I'm going to take another short break. When we come back, we're going to take a look at the there's another series on today. We're going to take a look at the Orlando Magic. They have game 2 of their series against the Boston Celtics later tonight. We're going to give an update on Jason Tatum. He had a little bit of an injury scare in game 1. Overall, we're going to give an update on how the Magic can make this series a little bit more interesting, and how Jason Tatum's injury can influence this series moving forward into the playoffs, depending on how injured he is. I'm going to take a short break, and when we come back, it's going to be Boston Celtics versus Magic in the first round. Be right back. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Mehrob Fatemi. Getting into our final segment here of the show, we're going to take a look at the Orlando Magic taking on the Boston Celtics in the first round of the NBA playoffs. This is a playoff series that's been circled by a lot of people, not even in the Boston Celtics group, but in general. A lot of people around the world are I've seen a lot of news about the Orlando Magic possibly knocking off the Boston Celtics in the first round, especially after how they performed against the Atlanta Hawks. I can completely see it. I can completely understand it. I can get behind it. However, I said this right after the Orlando Magic took down the Hawks. I remember previewing this series because this was a series that a lot of people, if you haven't watched a lot of basketball this year, or a lot of basketball in general over the last few years, you would say, what's so cool about the Orlando Magic? They're not that great of a team. They're one of those average teams, especially against Boston, the defending champs. There's no way that they can win. Completely understand it. Get behind it. No questions asked. Completely understand it. But this Orlando Magic's team is not based on offense. It's based on defense. We saw them putting a straitjacket on Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Even though Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum did not shoot the ball well, some of that has to do with them. They did I believe Jason Tatum only had less than 20 points. Jaylen Brown had less than 15 points. Overall, it was just not a great performance from the Celtics. A star duo that they have there. But yeah, this just speaks more volumes, I think, about this series is just going to come down to the defense of the Orlando Magic. We saw them clamp down. We saw them give the Celtics problems. The Magic held the lead going into halftime. I found the final box score. Tatum finishing with 17 points. Jaylen Brown with 16 points. Just not what we expect from a star duo, especially in wins for the Celtics. But that also speaks volumes about the Orlando Magic. The Orlando Magic are built on really two players. Number one, you can say two. One in Paolo Banchero, absolutely the star player. I think it's his third year out of Duke, ever since being drafted in 2022. And then Franz Wagner, who's a borderline all-star right now, I believe he's been named to the all-star game. But this year, he's been a little bit on the cusp just because his shooting has fallen off a little bit. He hasn't had the best shooting season of his NBA career, but still finishing with 23 points in this one. Only 1 for 6 from 3-point range. This is the biggest problem. Outside of those two players, the third leading scorer on this team was Jonathan Isaac with 7 points. Once again, continuing to lament why shallow teams built by 2 star players and a bunch of role guys that not unreliable role guys, they just don't work on NBA teams anymore. It proved, I said it with the Lakers to start the show. I talked about it with the Clippers. I talked about it with the Bucks. I talked about why it's so important on the Pacers, and now I'm saying once again why it's not going to work with the Magic. Going up against a deep team like the Boston Celtics that can go 5 men deep, can all shoot the ball in the starting lineup. Have Peyton Pritchard as the 6th man of the year, which is crazy. Peyton Pritchard as a 6th man. A lot of teams would start Peyton Pritchard in their starting lineup as their point guard or their shooting guard. And the Celtics don't have him in either role because they have Derek White and Drew Holiday sitting over there that are better than him. Flat out, Drew Holiday, that's a better defensive player, and they want to use him as a defensive lineup. And Derek White, who's a better facilitator than Peyton Pritchard is overall. He's a better player than Peyton Pritchard. I don't think that's crazy to say. But, yeah, just a 5-man deep team with Al Horford coming off the bench. Horford plays in the starting lineup. Luke Cornett coming off the bench. Sam Hauser coming off the bench. They just have an incredibly deep team, and it's the reason why when Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown have a bad day, they don't have to worry about it because sometimes Derek White pick up the slack, Drew Holiday picks up the slack, Peyton Pritchard picks up the slack. Usually it's very rare that both of them have bad days. Sometimes it's one and the other. One has a good one. One picks up the slack for the other when they're having a bad day. But yeah, this one just speaks volumes about the Celtics offense, the Magic defense being able to hold the Celtics to 103 points. If you watch the game, it was just a defensive battle overall. The Magic are still very underrated as a defensive team. But I think this series is going to come down to the offense of the Magic. If they can get other guys going, if they can get Tavius Caldwell-Pope going, if they can get Cole Anthony Black going, if they can shoot the ball like they did against the Atlanta Hawks in that playing game, if Cole Anthony can play similarly to the way he did in that game, Cole Anthony only finished shooting 1 for 3, only 3 shots, 1 3-pointer attempted. Anthony Black 1 for 4. You can't expect to win games shooting at that clip. It's just not going to work. It's flat out not going to work. It's just not going to work, plain and simple. I don't even want to say it any other way because there's no other way to say it. If you're the Orlando Magic, you need to shoot the ball better overall. You need to be able to shoot the three. The three has to be your best friend. In general, if you're facing the Boston Celtics, be prepared to shoot threes. Because if you shoot twos, it's going to be a math problem. Celtics shoot a lot of threes. They make a lot of threes. If you don't shoot or if you don't make or attempt a lot of threes, you're going to be left in the dust. Threes are better than twos overall. And the way the Celtics shoot the three, you rarely catch them missing from the three-point line on a bad day overall as a team. Usually either one of them is hot, and that's enough to spark the offense, enough to shut down either your run or spark a run of their own. That's the game that the Celtics play with, and you have to really beat them at their own game to have a chance to beat them, period. That's just my take on the Celtics right now and the Orlando Magic. Going into a little nugget of information that I haven't talked about very much so far, Jason Tatum's injury. He had a little bit of a scary fall. The player that fouled him got called for a flagrant foul on the dunk attempt. Tatum trying to catch his fall, braced himself with his wrist. All the weight landed on his wrist, and you could see the discomfort around it all over his face. I believe the player was Tavius Caldwell-Pope, being called for a flagrant foul on that play. And it's been noise around the league that Jason Tatum's it was just uncalled for overall. That's the only way to slice it. That's the only way I'm going to say it. But how is Jason Tatum going to be able to respond to that is the question. We saw him for the following minutes after that before taking out the starters. They let Jason Tatum shoot free throws. He missed both free throws. He took, I think, at least one, if not 2 threes. I know he airballed 1 3. He shot it and just completely airballed it. Not even a step back, just a straight on 3 with all his momentum, leaning forward, and absolutely bricked it. It's his shooting hand. It is his shooting wrist, so it's going to impact him in the series. Will it be enough to deter the Celtics? I don't think so. I think the series, regardless of Tatum's injury or not, it was going 6 games, and I still stand by that. I think the Celtics may lose tonight against the Magic. I would not be shocked if they lost game 2. I expect Jason Tatum to probably, if you're smart, if you're Jason Tatum, you sit out game 2. And you come back full-fledged in game 3 and game 4, a little bit healthier. But we all know the same Jason Tatum that I do. He does not sit out playoff games. I don't think he's sat out a single playoff game in his NBA career. He hasn't missed any playoffs, period. It's just going to be really interesting to see how Jason Tatum's going to be able to respond to this on an offensive end. He might become more of a facilitator. I would not be shocked if they start playing through Jason Tatum instead of having him shoot the ball, being able to facilitate, being similar to how Tyrese Halliburton plays. He could play at that level. But, yeah, Jason Tatum going to have a splint on his right hand for at least about a week or 2, I'd expect. They're not going to fully disclose what's wrong with his wrist just because, obviously, other teams scheme for this. They probably already are scheming for it, taking wild guesses. But in the state of the NBA today, nobody discloses their true injury reports, and that's just the case in the NBA these days. Jason Tatum is going to do the same, and he's going to have a splint on his wrist. It's just going to be really interesting to see how he's able to play offensively with that splint. I don't think it's going to bother him in the first round. It might bother him in the second round, whether they play the New York Knicks or the Detroit Pistons if they win this series. Even then, though, I still wouldn't say so, just because we'll get into the second round playoff predictions and what I think about those series at a later date after this first round. But for now, Boston Celtics and Orlando Magic kicking off at, I believe, 7:30 this evening. I'm going to quote that. Oh, they don't even play tonight. They play tomorrow. Doesn't matter. Jason Tatum will probably have more of an update on his wrist tomorrow when these two teams square off at 7 p.m. But tonight, that'll be the tonight the three games that we have tonight is Bucks Pacers at 7 Eastern, Grizzlies Thunder at 7:30, and then Timberwolves Lakers at 10 p.m. These are all Eastern times. Please check your local listings based on your time zone. But that's going to be it for me today. It was another unbelievable show. Thank you guys again for sticking around. I hope you guys enjoyed. Overall, we have a great slate of NBA games, NBA playoff series going on right now. I love to talk about it. I hope you guys also love hearing about it, love talking about it in general. Just love watching it as much as I am. These NBA playoffs. I seriously think they're the best in years than we've seen. Honestly, these are the best playoffs I've seen in a long time, at least the best since the bubble series in 2020. But thank you guys for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show and leave a positive review. Whether it's positive, whether it's negative, regardless, just please leave a review, what you guys think, what we can improve upon, what you guys are doing well with. You guys are a big influence on our show and what we do here at the GSMC Sports Network, so your input is greatly appreciated overall. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. Thank you once again for another great show. I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your days. We have another NBA slate, unbelievable NBA slate lined up for you guys tonight. Can the Lakers win Game 2 tonight? Can the Bucks even up this series in Game 2 tonight? Can the Grizzlies make amends? We didn't talk about it too much, but can the Grizzlies make amends for their Game 1 abysmal performance against the Oklahoma City Thunder? We're going to find out tonight, and I can't wait to talk about it more tomorrow. This is Mehrob Fatemi, the host of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, signing off. Bye-bye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to